Classrooms Without Borders is an organization, a nonprofit, which supports teachers from public, independent schools, private schools, charter schools. We take them on study seminars like this one to Spain, or we go to Poland with Holocaust survivors, or we go to Israel, and we use the country as a textbook.
Basically, this is a not-for-profit organization that was established by Dr. Tzippi Gore. It's her brainchild and her vision to take teachers on learning seminars outside their comfort zone and outside of their country, where the primary focus is teaching tolerance, bringing it to the classroom.
I'm here because I have just started traveling the world a couple years ago, and as a teacher, I have found that it just helps me to bring so much more to the classroom, whether it's showing them pictures or telling them stories about a certain place. It just gives me more context to be able to have much better classroom discussions.
Well, I think this trip to Spain is really going to help me as a teacher, and there's a lot I'm really hoping to bring home for my students. I teach a class that we call Patterns of Western Identity, and so we talk a lot about that issue of what is the West and what does that mean and how does that affect our own identity, which I think is kind of central to our curriculum in the history department.
So one of the things I liked about the study seminar in Spain was the idea to spend time in a country where these three cultures sort of collided and came to some semblance of coexistence, the Muslims, the Jews and Christians of medieval Spain.
Spain's a kind of very interesting meeting point between East and West historically, perhaps not today, but historically. And this question of tolerance and the other and religion and state was such a main force for what happened here in the Middle Ages and for actually cross-fertilization of ideas, intellectual ideas, language, culture, civilization, translating, bringing from East to West. And of course, it came to a big crashing end, unfortunately, but it's something that is a very interesting model to look at and see how we can bring it to the classroom as teachers.
We had a lot of interesting information about the Civil War and how that's being remembered in Spain or not talked about, and how that brings up some issues of remembrance. And I think that's a really good way to introduce some of those issues to our 10th graders in sort of a more maybe dispersonal way. I don't think a lot of our 10th graders know that much about the Spanish Civil War, but I think it brings up a lot of the same issues about memory, about commemoration that come up later in our US classes. So I'm actually hoping to do something with that with my 10th graders next year, because I think it would be a really good opportunity for them to discuss those issues and to see maybe it more in a more impersonal way before they have to deal with it in a more personal way in US history.
Yeah, so we landed in Malaga a week and a day ago. Been traveling ever since. The time that we spent in Cordoba was really amazing, seeing the mezquita, the very small mosque that's still there, walking in the footsteps of a society that was living in some semblance of coexistence. From there we traveled to Granada de see Alhambra, and then spent the evening in Seville, spent a couple days in Seville, Madrid, and now we're in Barcelona on this beautiful evening.
We've seen a lot about the history of Spain and about the Jewish people specifically, but also about the Muslims and the coexistence between Muslims and Christians and Jews and Muslims. And it's been really interesting, and it's been eye-opening to talk about things that, while they may seem so far in the distant past, they're also kind of relevant in today's world, especially in America. And that's been something that I was hoping to explore, but I didn't realize how it was going to come to the forefront and what we were going to see exactly and how the stories were going to line up and be so similar.
I've learned a tremendous amount in this trip. I don't think that I'm the most knowledgeable person in history, and certainly not of this period of time. Spain is not something that I was really conversant on, but after having had the opportunity for the last 8 or 9 days to travel and learn about the continual exile of the Jews from 2,000 years ago until today. But this is a period of 700 or 800 years that if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, before I came on this trip, I would have said to you, well, I heard that they were thrown out of Spain in 1492, and that was about the extent of my education.
I really think that some of the things that we've seen and witnessed our modern Spaniards and Catalans really trying to remember all the narratives of their own history. You can't just teach one specific narrative. To really understand the deep cultural and social history of Spain, you need to sort of see where they all three came together.
We really believe that teachers need to get out of the classroom and experience the culture, the history.
I teach world history, so I was just able to start connecting everything to Spain because I knew I was coming here, so it created that connection.
I love learning. There's a lot of things that I can bring back to the classroom from being in Spain. It's just it's a great place to travel and to learn.
How am I going to take this information that I learn and relate it to stories in my class and what I can use in the classroom? But I'm being reminded that there's a journey that I've been a part of. There's a narrative that I'm a part of.
Now that I know the history, now that I know geography, the place, like I said, it will be easier to craft something to give to my students when I go home.
Learning what teachers do, how they teach these courses, how they go about learning and assimilating. It's a great experience. I highly recommend it to anybody that would ever think about whether to go on a trip like this.
After the teachers come back, we bring scholars, exhibits, movies, all kinds of programs to the schools that are stimulating.
I think educators around the world are trying to grapple with this question of how do you teach our students tolerance, acceptance of the other.
We work with teachers on curriculum and lesson plans, and we enhance their teaching.
Learning about complexity, both in our own lives and also in history, that things are not monolithic. There's not only one way, there's not only one faith, there's not only one ethnicity or national culture that's better than others, but we can all learn from each other and hopefully have a shared society, not just coexistence, but a shared society.